Okay, welcome back, students. Before I proceed with the thought of battery, I forgot to explain to you some of the issues under law of assaults. Okay, the issue is, can words alone constitute an assault? This should be discussed in the first element of assault just now. Okay, the mental state of the defendant, the intention of the defendant. So up to a certain time, the general principle has been that mere words could not constitute an assault. So if there was an only word, okay, without accompanied by certain action, so it does not constitute assault. Okay, you may refer to the case of R against Mead and Belt, 1823. No words or singing are equivalent to an assault, but you may contrast with R against Wilson, 1955. The words "get out your knife" constitutes as an assault. So actually we refer to the circumstances of the words itself. Okay, but to be certain, if the words is accompanied by the actions of the defendant, then it has a high possibility to constitute as assault, and it will establish the first elements of assault. So words must be seen in the context in which they were spoken. Okay, so this is how we look into the words. And the tone of the voice, of facial expressions, and gesticulations have to be taken into account. The fact that the defendant may be in a position to realize his right is arguably an important factor in determining the existence of assault in the circumstances. So we look into the situations, okay, how the words is represented to the plaintiff. Okay, that's all. Alright, next we proceed with the thought of battery. Okay, in bahasa, this is means serang sentuh. Assault just now is serang, right? Okay, you apply the threatening act. Okay, but battery is serang sentuh. Okay, you threaten and then it is accompanied by applications of force. So battery means an intentional and direct application of force to another person without the person's consent. The touching need not necessarily involve violence, and the thought of battery protects individual from any interference onto his person, thus preserving his dignity and reputation. Okay, I give you an illustration of battery when both A and B get into an agreement that leads to B punching A in the face, breaking his nose. Therefore, the claimant in this case would have to prove that all the elements of battery are established. Only then B can be charged with committing a battery. Why this illustration constitute as a battery? Yes, okay, when B is punching A. So there was an applications of force there. Okay, in order to take actions under battery, there are 4 elements need to be established. First is an intention of the defendant to apply force. Second is the act was under the defendant's control. Third, there must be a contact or application of force and without plaintiff consent. So the first element is the mental state of the defendant. We need to prove that the defendant have applied the force intentionally. So defendant have intention to commit battery, to commit force. Any physical contact with the body of plaintiff of his clothing is sufficient to constitute force. For example, in Cole against Turner, the least touching a person in anger is a battery. So dalam keadaan marah, okay, then you touch a person, this is called as battery. So general rule is that the intention must relate. Okay. the intention must relate to the physical contact. But the doctrine of the the doctrines is here is that okay, there must be a direct act of the defendant. Okay, sorry, there was a typo errors there. Okay, so in the first elements you need to prove that the as a result of the intentions of the defendant to commit force, so it is also consequence of the direct act of the defendants. Okay. Okay, example of case here is court against Shepherd's. Case court against Shepherd's 1773. So the facts of the case: a lighter script was thrown by defendant into an open market area. Okay, so who start the situation? The defendant, right? A picked the script and threw it upon B, who picked it up and threw it away, and the squib hit the plaintiff, whereupon it burst into flames. So who is liable? The defendant was liable for the thought of battery, although his initial act did not directly affect the plaintiff. Even bukan daripada dia. Okay, but according to the court, A and B reacted for their own safety, and so they did not have the required intention to commit the act. So the one who start the incidents here is defendant. So defendant was liable for battery. The second elements of battery here is the defendant's act was under his control. Okay, defendant's act must be done voluntarily. Okay, it must be done voluntarily by the defendant and not caused by other factors. Example, in the case of Gibbons against Pepper, in this case, defendant was riding a horse when someone hit the horse from behind, causing the horse to bolt, and the horse collided with the plaintiff. And the defendant was not liable because okay, the act of the horse bolting and colliding with the plaintiff was outside of the defendant's control. Okay, defendants cannot control the act of the horse, so it not constitute as a battery here. And the third element of battery here is contact. There will be no battery if there is no contact. So there must be applications of force with the plaintiff body or clothing. Okay, force here means a technical terms, even there is no violence required to prove force. Okay, for example, there must be any physical contact with the body of the plaintiff or his clothing. Okay, example here, throwing water on the plaintiff may constitute battery, but throwing water on the clothes worn by plaintiff might not necessarily be a battery. So when there is when there was a touch to the plaintiff body, so it may constitute a battery. Okay, as an example of case, may refer to Cole against Turner. So Liz touching also considered as battery. Okay, and then if two or more persons meet in a narrow passage without any violence or design of harm, and the one touch the other gently, it will be no battery. Okay, there is also any physical contact. For example, okay, if you just are tapping of others person's shoulder, it does not constitute a battery. Okay. This is under the fourth elements. Okay, without the plaintiff consent. Okay, one cannot touch another person without his consent or without lawful justifications. So the also touching where it is presumed implied consent. For example, when you are tapping a person's shoulder, like I mentioned just now, okay, to get his attention. So this does not constitute as battery. Or brushing shoulders on a crowded bus. Okay, yes, of course, there is no consent given, but this is implied consent. Impliedly, we give consent. Okay, another case for the battery here, okay, under 4 elements is the case of Tiong Pik Hyong against Wong Siu Jiu, 1964. In this case, the defendant was liable for battery for scratching the plaintiff's face and hitting the plaintiff due to her jealousy or plaintiff friendship with her husband. So here there was act of scratching and hitting, means the application of force, and obviously, okay, it was done without the plaintiff consent, so it constitutes a battery. Okay, so how you may compare, okay, between an assault and battery. Okay, for assault, the issue of consent does not arise, but for battery, defendant's act must have been done without plaintiff consent. Next point, for assault, plaintiff experienced reasonable apprehensions of an immediate infliction of force upon his persons. Okay, assault, there was no force yet, but plaintiff will feel the reasonable apprehensions. And for battery, there is a physical contact or direct transmission of force between defendants and plaintiff. So they must be touching there. Okay, ada sentuhan. And for assault, to protect one from threat of any physical violence and to maintain one's mental well-being. And for battery, to protect one from physical contact, be it violent or not, as long as it is unnecessary and unauthorized contact. Okay, so that's all for assault and battery. So make sure that you are able to understand all the elements so that later you can answer in the problem-based question on assault and battery. Okay, the same formula used as you answer negligence. Okay, you have to fulfill all the elements, right? So guys, if you have any further questions, you can directly contact me. Yeah? Thank you for your kind attention. Assalamualaikum.